Boom. Good morning. October 21st, 2022. Shake, rattle, and hum, guys. Let's go. Time for the morning word. Get your coffee and get your Bible. Open it to Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6. And then join us here in a couple of minutes. So we get ready to share the morning word with you. Let me see if I can get this thing dialed up here. There it is. Good morning. October 21st. Mark chapter. There we go. Hey, Elaine and Artie, Blake. Good morning to everyone. Clarence, John Cameron down in Panola, Alabama. Nick Walker up in Hoosierville. Good morning, Nick, my man, Elaine and Gary. Doug Jones, one of my friends in low places. Jim Pennington, the repo man. Just trying to help people get back on their feet. Tell them, hey, Miss Faye, let's go. Tell them. Gail, you're exactly right. It's Friday. Gail, I passed you on the road the other day. You were studiously watching the road in front of you like a good driver, and I was looking at you trying to wave and get your attention like a bad driver. And but I missed you, but I saw you going down the road. Good to see you. Hey, Minaj. Hey, Linda. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Victory and Kim Barnett. Yes, ma'am. It's Friday. Hallelujah. Look at Nick saying y'all. He's from up north. Hey, Brandy. Good morning. Hey, Brandy, where does Tuscaloosa County High play tonight? Hey, Autumn. Hey, Susan. Hey, Minaj. Daryl. What's going on? That's the mayor of Smith Acres right there, y'all. Mr. Daryl Shaw, longtime friend. Hey, Rhonda Goins. Big Al. Al, you better check on Nick. He's going southern on you up there saying y'all. Hey, Missy Ramsey. No, you weren't speeding. Yeah. Hey, Candy. Hey, Eric. Hey, Jana. Good morning, Heather. Nikki. Good to see you, Nick. Kathy White. Good morning. Yes, ma'am. Thank God it is Friday. Excuse me. Hey, Donna Wyman. Yeah, it was. No, you weren't speeding, Gail. But I did see you. I was driving beside you for a few moments. Hey, Rhonda. Rob Wiggins, what's going on, my man? Hey, Tess. Vestavia Hills. Okay. Well, good luck. Good luck. Hey, Loretta. You're good, Gail. You're good. All right. Hey, Tolu. Meredith. Marianne. All right. Hey, Peggy. Hey, Al. Mark chapter 6. Here we go. Hey, Miss Francis. Let's get started so everybody can get to work. Okay, in Mark chapter 6, Jesus is doing some mighty works. And, of course, anyone in that area has heard about him. And so the question's going around, who is this guy? Excuse me. So, picking up in verse 14, King Herod has heard about him. Now King Herod heard of him, for his name had become well known. And he said, John the Baptist is risen from the dead, and therefore these powers are at work in him. Others said, it is Elijah. And others said, it is the prophet, or like one of the prophets. But when Herod heard, he said, this is John, whom I beheaded. He has been raised from the dead. For Herod himself had sent and laid hold of John, and bound him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. And it's a little wordy there, so here's what that means. Herodias was married, or Herodias, ever how you want to say it. She was married to Philip. Philip was Herod's brother. So Herod just took his brother. Now these Herod boys, Herod and Philip, these were all brothers, partial half brothers. This was a scoundrel bunch. And they had, as you can tell, they had no respect for one another. So one of them just took the other one's wife and married her. And they were harsh people. When I say harsh, I mean they'd kill you in a minute and then sit down and have a candy bar. It didn't matter to them. So anyway, let's pick it back up. So he bound John in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, for he had married her. There you go. Because John had said to Herod, it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. Like that shouldn't have been obvious. Therefore Herodias held it against him and wanted to kill him. Big point here. Herodias, the girl, the woman, held it against him, that's John, and wanted to kill him. But she could not. Why? For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just and holy man, and he protected him. And when he heard him, that is, he would send for him in prison and bring him out. And he wanted to talk to John about the things of the Lord. He was very interested in it. And when he heard him, he did many things and heard him gladly. Then an opportune day came. I should have changed the title of this message. I just thought about that. Then an opportune day came when Herod on his birthday gave a feast for his nobles. So Herod throws himself a party, all right? And invites all of his nobles, the high officers, and the chief men of Galilee. And when Herodias' daughter herself came in and danced, young girl now, and pleased Herod and those who sat with him. This young girl's dancing for a bunch of men, been drinking all night. The king said to the girl, here's the liquor talking, ask me whatever you want, and I will give it to you. He also swore to her, whatever you ask me, I will give you up to half my kingdom. That booze is talking to him, isn't it? All right. And she went out and said to her mother, what shall I ask? Now, let me pause right here. This gives us a little bit of an understanding about how old this girl is. She's not old enough to make her own decisions. She goes back now when presented with this choice to receive anything she asked from the king. Anything. All right. And up to half the kingdom. Okay. So she goes and asks her mama. So I'm going to throw this girl out there probably between 12 and 14, maybe 15. So this woman's got her 14 or 15-year-old daughter out here dancing for a bunch of drunk men, been partying all night. So she goes and asks her mama, what do you want me to do? So let's pick it back up. And she said, the head of John the Baptist. Now, she mad. She's been sitting on this a while. John the Baptist, verse 25. Immediately she came in with haste to the king and asked, saying, I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And the king was exceedingly sorry. Yet because of the oaths and because of those who sat with him, he did not want to refuse her. Peer pressure. All right. Immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in prison and brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl. And the girl gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took away his corpse and laid it in a tomb. Today's morning word is, oh, what a tangled web sin does weave. See, when God tells us that we need to put off the old man and put on the new, when he tells us to give no place to sin, when he tells us, that alcohol is unwise, Proverbs chapter 20, when he tells us that alcohol is unwise, when he tells us that the companion of fools will be destroyed, okay, when he tells us to abstain from sexual immorality, and all of these things came to play in here, God's not trying to be a killjoy. God's trying to keep us from letting our joy kill us, all right? Because he knows that sin weaves a tangled web. And we have a lot of complications in our life today, don't we? We have complicated lives because of sinful choices, all of us. And you say, well, here's what we need to do. But as soon as you start unraveling this knot, it looks like you're tying another one in the other end of the rope, because sin just doesn't have you just can't find the loose end on sin. In this story, King Herod was the king, all right? And at some point in time in his past, he just decided he's going to go take his brother's wife. Now, I don't know how that went over, probably like a soup sandwich, and they was probably looking for an opportunity to kill each other on any point, at any point in time, because they didn't have a problem doing that, killing anybody they thought was a threat to the kingdom, and so forth and so on. So, and they got it honest. It came down from their daddy, who had all the male babies killed when Jesus was a baby. So you got a bunch of baby killers in the family. You got a bunch of adulterers in the family. Not adultery, not respectable adultery, like going to get somebody else's wife, but your brother's wife. All right. So they had incestuous adultery, if you wanted to call it that, as a play on words. They thought a lot of themselves. They threw themselves a party. You would think that somebody would say, "Hey man, it's King's birthday. We need to throw him a party," and the king has to hear about it because he's got to grant the permission, right? That he'll even be there, but he can play it off like, I know they're going to have the party, but it's still going to be a surprise, and it's a thoughtful gesture. No, the king throwed himself a party. So they're having a party in there, and they having the boobs and the babes, and all of a sudden, this young girl, it's her turn to dance. Now, go figure this. Why is she dancing to start with? This is the king's wife's daughter. In other words, it would be the king's stepdaughter. Why is he bringing her in there and parading her around, scantily clad, you can bet, and shaking, and in front of him and all these men? Okay? Well, let me tell you why. Because sin has no boundary. And it wouldn't be beyond the king, to sleep with his stepdaughter. And maybe to hold her out as a opportunity to cut some kind of business deal with somebody that's at the party. Now they drinking. I'm not going to even go into all that, but you can tell that alcohol talks, okay? And alcohol thinks that it's okay for a 14-year-old girl to dance in front of them, okay? Scantily clad. That's what alcohol thinks. And then alcohol will eventually talk. Can't keep its thoughts to itself. If you've ever been around alcohol, I haven't. I don't lie either. And alcohol will move from a thought to a conversation. And so he just stops everything. He goes, "Hey, sugar pudding." I threw that in there. He goes, "Ask me anything you want and I'll give it to you." All right? Ask me anything you want and I'll give it to you. Up to half my kingdom. Now, that's that alcohol talking. He's a fool. All right, so here's what she does. She goes outside and she asks her mom, "What do you want?" So here's what her mama said. "You talking about this girl ain't mad and got a root of bitterness?" This is what a root of bitterness would do. She said, "I want John the Baptist's head." She'd been trying to she wanted that man killed, but Herod didn't want to kill him, see? Herod knew that John was some sort of a religious kind of prophet guy, and he liked to listen to what he had to say. So even after he had to lock him up for just scorning him and Herodias for getting together, King Herod would send for him and have him come in there and talk to him. And then he put him back in prison, and that was working out relatively well for him until an opportune time. That's what it says. Look over here. On verse 21, it says, "Then an opportune day came when Herod on his birthday gave a feast." All right. So an opportune time. Sin is always going to take its opportunity to mess things up. Sin is going to it's never going to miss an opportunity to mess things up. It's just not. That's why God redeemed us from sin's penalty, removed our guilt and our shame, and then he freed us from its power, and he wants us to live in the power of the Spirit so that we don't get in these tangled webs, because God knows we can weave some tangled webs. And if you ever sit around and tell your story and somebody else tells their story, you'll wonder how in the world. I learn something new all the time, and I'm just going to pause and throw this. I'm not going to do that. I don't even want to talk about it this morning, but talking about the tangled webs of sin. And it's when I listen to people tell their stories, and I hear a lot of them because people like to talk to the preacher about that kind of stuff. I have to ask myself sometime, man, how do you get out of that? How did that happen? And how do you recover from something like that? And you think, that just happens here and there. It looks like it happened. The stories that I hear are happening everywhere to everybody. And I'm going, what in the Sam Hill? And it's crazy. And so it's happening here. And so get this now. Here's a point that I didn't make a while ago. Here's a mama that pimps her daughter to dance for a bunch of perverted old men that are drunk. All right, so she knows what they're thinking when she goes out there. But then she uses her, she uses her to get her way. Here's a mama now. Unbeknownst to the daughter, she's manipulating the daughter for her own, controlling her daughter for her own, to satisfy her own vengeance. I mean, this girl's got a mad on and she can't get over it. And she wants John the Baptist dead, and she's not going to miss the opportunity, so sin presents the opportunity. So now get this now. So she tells her 13 or 14 or 15-year-old daughter, I want you to go ask for the head of John the Baptist. In other words, I want you to be the go-between between me and your stepdaddy there. That liquor's talking to him, and he's got himself in a bind here, and I know it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell your daddy you want him to kill John the Baptist. So she puts her daughter into the position of asking for a man's life to be taken. She put her daughter in the position to ask or to demand for a man's life to be taken. And it says that the king was saddened and sorry because of this. In other words, he wasn't counting on that. He didn't plan on that. But sin, sin weaves a tangled web. So she comes and presents him with that. And you know what he has to do? He has to do it. Now, you know why? Because he ran that lip around all of his drunk friends, and then he got called on it. And to save face, because it already said over here, we read this, it said Herod, verse 20, Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just and holy man, and he protected him. Now that was Herod. Herod knew that John was just and holy, and he protected him. So you know what? Because of alcohol and because of peer pressure to maintain his image, he ordered the death of a just and holy man that he knew was just and holy, and he had gone to great lengths up until this point to protect him. Now, you think that sin is not weaving a tangled web today? Look at our government. All right. Look at our school systems. Look at the Board of Education. Look what's going on in the school systems. You think that sin is not weaving a tangled web? Look at our children. Now I know they don't behave and they're disrespectful, and a lot of that is because we don't have the proper homes and the proper parenting. But also look at what some of these kids are living in and what they're living through. And then you send them to school and they've basically been on their own since yesterday when they left school. And you're wondering how do you expect them to act? All right? By what they see and hear. Think about this girl right here. You think this old girl right here, you think this 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girl, you think she had some problems later in life? You think she had some problems connecting intimately with a future husband when it comes out that her past was dancing with the king? Come on. And the things that she saw and heard her mama do, and that her daddy was probably Philip. And if it wasn't Philip, who her mama was married to at one time, it was some other man. So her mama's making the rounds, all right? And that her mama's got her dancing and for men and in parties. It's probably late night. That girl should have been in bed working on her homework. And she's in a drinking party dancing. You think she didn't have some adjustments to make it? You think her life was a tangled up mess? Think about Herod the days after this when he sobered up and realized what he had done. Think about some of his people that were at the party going, he killed a man. He killed a man because of the hoochie coochie girl that danced for 15 minutes out here asking. I mean, do you see the quandary and the mess that's going on right here in this one scene that just permeates, that has, if you back away from it, had all this mess in Herod's family's life, Herod's father's life, Herod's brother's life, their wives, their kids from God knows who their daddy is, all the way down to John the Baptist. All John the Baptist was doing was preaching the gospel and telling men, hey, listen, it's not lawful, it's not right, it's against God's law for you to marry your brother's wife. That's what John was doing, and it got him put in prison, and it eventually got his head taken off his shoulders for something completely unrelated to what he had done. But this woman was mad. Now, don't you think that sin won't take an opportunity to strike out at the voices that condemn it? Sin will take it. When sin gets the opportunity, that's the opportune day, when sin gets the opportunity to strike out to the voices that condemn it, it will happen. So when you and I, as the salt and the light of the earth, begin to stand up and say, that's not right, we should do this, this is right, that is wrong, don't you know that sin is going to come and take advantage of its opportunities to see if it can silence us? So there's so many lessons to learn in this. John the Baptist did not have the luxury of being silent. He was there, sent by God to prepare the way of the Lord, and his message was repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's his message. And that's the generalized message to all humanity. And then he breaks it on down to what he sees taking place around him. And he sees the king of the people committing adultery with his brother's wife, and he calls him out in public about it. Well, got him locked up. And that very well could be our future here as believers, unless we just decide to just let everything go, okay? And hoping it will get better. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And because why? Why? Why is it going to get worse? Because sin doesn't stop weaving its web. It just gets bigger, and it gets thicker, and it gets more complicated. It gets larger. It gets more complex. It gets more complicated. Sin's web is continually being built on a day-by-day basis in our lives and in the lives of those around us. You got kids, going through some sort of divorce. You got, sexual abuse. You got drug addiction. You got alcoholism, in our marriages and in our kids and in our in-laws and in our children. You got kids with emotional problems because of all this stuff. Kids that are being molested at school. 269 teachers to date, which was last week or a couple of weeks ago. 269 teachers, I think that was the number I read, in the United States in 10 months arrested. That's just the ones they call arrested for sexual misconduct and abuse and assault on kids in their classroom. Man, you're just trying to send kids, supposed to be reading, writing, arithmetic, and a little playing outside. They coming home losing their virginity to their science teacher in the janitor's hall closet during third period. And then they come home from school, and you got to get them in counseling. You got to pursue the authorities. You got to get somebody arrested. Now they're going to come get somebody else's daddy that's a secret closet child molester, and they're going to bust up another family, and then those kids are going to be, you see how that web just keeps weaving itself around and around and around. And God's not a cosmic killjoy. God's trying to help us to see that sin is going to weave a web that is very sticky and tangled, and it's almost impossible to get out of it without the grace of God and without the power of God. So God loves us. God's trying to help us. So let's do a couple of things here. Let's try to stay out of the web, and let's don't build the web. Let's try to stay out of the web, and for God's sake, let's try not to build the web, okay? Because sin will weave a tangled web, and it will take its opportunity to find its detractors and its naysayers and those who speak out against it, and it will try to destroy them every time. Now, we got the weekend coming up, so y'all stay out of the net. We'll see you Monday, good Lord willing, and the saints don't rise. Stay out of the web, I meant to say. Stay out of the web. We'll see you Monday. Peace out.